Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name is Scott Lawson, and I'm a certified business coach with Action Coach of the Coastal Bend in South Texas. And I'll be your host today. I'm very excited to have our special guest, Ruben Pina, on our show. He's the president of A1 BizCom. Today, we're going to talk to Ruben about his business, the journey to business ownership, some challenges, some successes, and have him share what it's really like to own and operate a business as an entrepreneur. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe so you get notifications when we publish new content. Well, Ruben, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. Let's get started.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Scott. I appreciate the time.
Can you give us an overview of your background?
Yeah, so I've been in IT for as long as I can remember. My A1 BizCom is primarily an IT business to business company. And so in high school, I did IT classes, did some conferences that the schools took us to that immersed us in some of the business technologies that were coming out. And right out of high school, IT was one of the things that I really wanted to get into. And so I've been in IT as long as I can remember. It's been a long journey.
So great. Thanks, Ruben, for that. That's interesting to hear the background there. Tell me about how you started the business.
Sure. So one of the unique characteristics about A1 BizCom is my dad actually started a company called TalkPath Communications, eventually Rio City Telephones, in 1984. And so it started off with dialers. You remember the old days of dialing 1010 220, and you have to dial hit code and all these things. So he started off by doing that. And so he was a phone guy, let's call it a phone guy, for a long time. And it was my dad, and occasionally he'd have an employee here or there, but primarily it was my dad. So growing up, I was homeschooled, and so I would go to work with my dad and I would learn these pieces. Well, because of the time frame coming into the 2000s, IT and voice over IP was starting to become a bigger part of that space. And my dad was getting closer and closer to retirement. So the conversation was always, Ruben, you start to learn the IT stuff so that when you get out of high school, you can come on, you'll be, employee number 2, Ruben Senior, employee 1, phone guy, Ruben Junior, knowing the phones, but also doing the IT part. And so that was in 2003. And so we started integrating IT into that. And that's when the name changed right around then from Rio City Telephones, Rio being River City, San Antonio, the Riverwalk, to A1 BizCom, being able to be at the top of the yellow pages for A1 business communications. And so that's how it started. So it was my dad and myself. And then, ultimately my dad retired. And then we kind of morphed at that point into what we are today, more of IT focused and MSP versus what was traditionally a phone guy, just me and my dad.
Great. That is so interesting. And I love it that you and your dad were able to work together during that period of time, and you were able to kind of take advantage of that. That's wonderful.
Yeah. It's one of those things. My dad and I we don't work well together in the same room, but we work perfect together in the same organization with the same goal. So if we're in 2 different rooms doing 2 different things with the same goal, we work hand in hand flawlessly.
Oh,
When we're in
that's
the
great.
same room, that becomes, and so it was always we always understood that. And so it was a perfect mend of older technologies, new technologies, where we both wanted to go. Him retirement, handing it off to me, growing it to something else. It was great. So it worked out perfect.
So important. Other business owners could learn from that too. That's a key important area where we understand how we can best work together. I love it. So let's talk about the business itself. Tell me about A1 BizCom.
So A1 BizCom, we specialize in small to medium businesses, and mostly in the small, not even medium. So our perfect niche is customers that have between 1 and 100 employees, roughly. These companies do not have internal IT resources, or very little internal IT resources. So they're looking for a professional company to align with in order to deliver those products and services and advise them as they grow. What are some of the pitfalls that companies are making? What are some of the ways that they can close gaps in their businesses and use technology to become more efficient? That's what our niche is that small business that's really looking to have a partner in making those decisions in their company.
Great, great. Ruben, tell me about you. What's your role in the business?
Sure. So with A1 BizCom, kind of going one step back to the story is around 2011 or 2012, my brother Ben got out of the Marine Corps and was like, hey, want to join the family business. At the time, there wasn't enough business for an extra employee, but we hired him. He ran alongside me for a couple of years, and then eventually my dad retired. I took over, and then my brother Ben took my spot in the field technician space. So what that allowed me to do is change my role to just bringing business in, driving revenue. That's my position with A1 BizCom starting back then, roughly 2013, 2014 to now, is driving business. So I'm out talking to customers, potential customers or existing customers, to expand that book of business or get their business. And then there's a warm handoff from my desk to Benjamin's desk to now start the work. So I'm not involved in the day-to-day in any of the work that's being accomplished, but I am involved in getting the business in.
I see. Yeah, that's great. Good to understand more about how all of that comes together. What's the one thing you wish more people knew about your business or your industry?
Yeah, if we rewind the clock 10, 15, 20 years ago, um, the idea that people have in mind for maybe somebody that's in my traditional role right now is more of a car salesman type person, somebody who was in that role for a company, AT&T, Spectrum, Verizon, Frontier, that they're trying to make a quota every month. So they're selling you a product or service, and they have this high pressure. And so it limits it. Back then, it would limit the engagement of the customer to that person. They didn't want to share too much information in fear of that they're going to use that information against them. They're not sure what their motives really are, if it's driven by quota. Where the market sits today is more and more there are companies like A1 BizCom who legitimately, my only goal is to take care of the customer, because by taking care of that customer, we now have a similar model to an insurance broker, where upon renewal or upon you now buying a house and needing homeowners insurance, upon you now having children and needing life insurance, you want this customer to come back to you over and over again, because they realize you're not driven by quotas. You're not driven by some altruistic motive. You're driven by the fact that you want what's best for the customer. So you're spending your time investigating and researching the solutions and price points that are out there, delivering them to your customer. And inevitably, when there are problems, it's not a situation where you sit back and like, listen, I'm not billing you for those services. AT&T is billing you. If you have a problem, call them. No, it's something that we get actively involved in so that we can troubleshoot and keep that good experience for our customer, that trust with our customer. So the one thing that I wish more people understood is the fact that you can let your guard down on a trusted advisor like A1 BizCom, and there's many others, to say, look, these are the real problems I have with my business right now. What can I offload from my plate and give to you, Ruben, A1 BizCom, to solve for me, that I can have full confidence that you will do what's in my best interest as a customer? So I really wish people would understand that a little more.
Well, that's great. What differentiates A1 BizCom from others that might be competitors or others in your industry?
So there's two main competitors to A1 BizCom right now. There are MSPs, managed service providers, that are traditional IT companies. That's the number one competitor. And the difference between us and them is those companies will bring a product to the customer, and maybe the best product, but they white label it under their company name and bill it to the customer. That's one of the things that I'm not a huge fan of. And the reason why is I don't think that it watches out enough for the customer. if the customer starts to have a bad experience, they don't necessarily know what the product is. They just know who they're being billed for it from, the MSP that's white labeling it and having a veil of secrecy behind the actual product that's behind the curtain. So this sometimes causes issues because the customer doesn't have the flexibility to go to another company and be nimble in the event that the company, the customer, grows to a point where this product no longer suits them. They have to decide, well, I guess I have to get rid of my entire MSP, my trusted advisor, in order to change products. For A1 Bizcom, we like bringing products to the customer that the customer is direct billed from the provider for. So we will negotiate a better price, negotiate better terms, verify that the implementation is done according to what was proposed in the scope of work, and ensure that the customer is happy. That allows us to go alongside the customer, no matter what the product is. Even if hypothetically the customer brought their own product, we are a trusted advisor. It's not one where we have to, you can only come to A1 Bizcom if you buy my product that I'm white labeling as something else. So that's one of our competitors. The other side of our competitors are custom companies that do just what I'm describing A1 Bizcom does, but has no field technicians. So that becomes an issue where if I suggest a product to the customer and it's a very complicated implementation product, and let's just say hypothetically AT&T could install it. We all know, and AT&T is a great company, I'm not trying to trash them, but these companies that are much larger, you're not going to have an A+ implementation experience. It's just not going to be there. You're going to be dealing with people in different countries or different states. It's all going to be remote. You're not going to have much hand holding. You're not going to have the warm and fuzzies. And so that becomes an issue when it actually comes to implementing and supporting the product long term, even if it's a good product. Well, with A1 Bizcom, we have field technicians and office staff that not only do we advise on the best technology and the best product, we help implement and we support it long term. Again, the customer being directly billed to the provider, so they're free to go choose somebody else other than A1 Bizcom and not affect their service. So they have the freedom to do that. They know that A1 Bizcom has the in-house staff to support the product that we are suggesting that they go to. And in my opinion, that's the best of both worlds versus the other two main competitors that really only do half of what we're doing.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's great. Ruben, where do you think your business is headed in the, say, next 3, maybe 5 years?
Sure. So San Antonio is a growing market. Texas as a whole is a growing market, and I can see in the next 2 to 4 years that there's going to be this continued expansion in San Antonio. We have a lot of our customers that are now started off in franchise type organizations for oil change or for restaurants that are now expanding these organizations outside of Texas and are looking for companies like A1 Bizcom to help them with that expansion for the phones, for the cameras, for the network, for the cabling, for the paging, all of these products that are going into their locations. They need somebody to help them as they move out of state and further. And so I see A1 Bizcom just doing the same thing that we've done for 12 to 14 years as a continued organic expansion. It's not something that we focus on growth or marketing or bringing leads in. We focus on taking care of our customers, and inevitably that leads to the expansion of our customer base, existing and future. And so really, for the next several years, we will see continued growth. I'm sure of it, but it'll be through the same thing that we've always done.
The next question I have is, what excites you about the future?
Yeah. So what excites me most about the future is that technology continues to adapt. And that'll be the case forever. Let's just be honest, that'll be the case forever. But as we start to hear these buzzwords like AI is the latest buzzword, companies are struggling to figure out, how do I adapt that technology term into my business? And what does that even mean? And so as the world gets more and more complicated around cybersecurity and AI specifically, those two things, small to medium businesses will continue to find a way to make sense of these products and deliver it to their companies. And that's where A1 Bizcom steps in. And so it really excites me that things like ChatGPT and AI and cybersecurity are where they're at and continue to evolve, because that's going to push along the conversation to customers to figure out how we can be of service to them.
Great. When you think about success, Ruben, who's the first person you think of and why?
I'll be honest, there's so many successful people that I follow, I read, I listen to. And so, I would say that if I have to narrow it down to one, then I would say my father. My
Mm,
father would be one. My father, the company that A1 Bizcom exists in right now, the company that A1 Bizcom is right now, is light years different from what my dad envisioned, what his goal was, what his dream was. It's light years, it's completely opposite. If my dad existed in A1 Bizcom in my role, he would be completely unhappy. He would not like where it is. Now, but the thing that taught me, the reason I say success is because for my dad, his reason for A1 Bizcom existing was to support my mother, his wife, and 5 kids. And that's it. Have a good vacation once or twice a year, have everything that we need, be happy and well in life. Okay. Not grow, not have employees, not be a world conqueror. Well, I have the opposite. Okay. And that's okay. Success isn't based on how big the company is. Success isn't based on how much money you make. Success isn't based on any of those outside things that maybe somebody looks at your business and applies value to. What success really is to me is doing what you love to do. And whatever your internal goal is, if it's just to have a business with enough to make enough to cover your bills and have a little bit in savings, then you are successful. If it's to have a multi-billion dollar, multi-global company, and that's what makes you happy, then you are successful. And so for me, success isn't so much monetary or maybe the things that other people will look at whether a company is successful or a person is successful. To me, success is achieving something that you want in life. That's the end of it.
that's great. Great advice. If you could magically improve one area of your business tomorrow, what would it be?
I would say middle management. Um, more and more as time goes on, and as I talk to more and more business owners that have been in the industry for, say, 30 plus years, we start to see that the labor force is there. If I needed to go out and get labor to expand, I could get it pretty quickly. Um, and then at a high level, like myself, my brother Ben, those people exist. They're running their own companies in all likelihood. Right in the middle, managing people, being team leaders, having managers over admin staff. That is a piece that is really, really missing. And that is something that if I could twitch my nose and tap my toes together, that I would really like to have some middle management that is more accessible than it is today.
Okay, thanks, Ruben. I've got one last question. What is one piece of advice you would give to other business owners as we wrap things up? Is there a piece of advice that you haven't already given in this interview that you would give to other business owners?
Yeah. My biggest piece of advice is to be a student. Always, always, always be a student. And so there's never a situation, I think that when you say that to business owners, everybody would agree. And most would say that that is the mentality I have. I'm always willing to learn, I'm always willing to adapt. But in practice, I feel like if people are honest with themselves, they would realize that's not necessarily the case. There are little tells that you can hear when you're talking to somebody. If somebody has to say something along the lines of, well, I've been doing this for 25 years and I've forgotten more than somebody else knows, that tells me right now you're not in a growth mindset. You're just not. You
Hmm.
feel like your experience has given you a one up and on somebody or multiple people. So these little things that people say tell me there's not a growth mindset. I've been managing people for 10 years. I can do this stuff in my sleep. I've done this over and over again. I've had many successful companies. All of these things, what it communicates to people is you're not in a growth mindset. You're not a growth mindset person. What I get from you today, I can expect 10 years from now. I'm not going to get anything better than you. Maybe more, maybe 1% year over year, like a standard raise working at a company. That's about all I'll be able to expect from you. And so I think the key is having in your mind always the thought that I'm wrong. I
Mm,
not only could I be wrong, but I'm probably wrong. When you have that mindset, you're always like, man, if I'm wrong, how do I make sure that I'm not wrong? And that leads you to a growth mindset. That leads you to looking and researching. It leads you to call people and be vulnerable and say, I'm struggling with this problem. It calls you to meet with your employees and say, I've identified this problem. How do you see that I should fix this problem? It starts to open up your mind to the different voices, the different words, the different books, you can even open your mind to see ways to strategically be better by watching a sitcom show on TV, just understanding human psychology. All of these avenues are ways that you can improve yourself as a business owner, but it starts with the thought that not only could I be wrong, but I'm probably wrong. And how
mm.
do I ensure that I'm not like that? And I think one of the things, and I'm going to butcher the saying here because I'm real bad at remembering the exact words, but I'm good at remembering the idea, is Kobe Bryant once said that he realized that when he's nervous about going to a basketball game and performing, it's because he knows deep down he didn't do all that he could to be prepared for that game. So if there's an ounce of nervousness, that's good. That means you didn't prepare enough, and next time you can. And so you're in control of that preparation. And when I say that preparation, whether it's a basketball game or a business, it's all the same thing. It's all preparation. And if you have that growth mindset of saying, how do I prepare myself to where whatever obstacles come in front of me, I will be able to overcome them. And even if they stop me in my tracks, I will have avenues toward an eventual victory. If you have that in your tool chest, you will be successful. It's going to take time, but you will be successful. And so that would be my biggest advice, is just stay humble, as cliche as that sounds.
Great, great advice. Thanks, Ruben, for sharing your story. This has been very insightful, and I hope that the audience finds it informative and valuable. This is the Business Spotlight Series with Scott Lawson from Action Coach of Coastal Bend and Ruben Pina of A1 BizCom. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you can continue to see great content. Thank you for being with us today.
Sir,
Bye for now.
take it easy.